Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the 1% Improvement podcast, the podcast that helps you improve your mental and physical health 1% at a time with small steps and big changes. My name is Saya. I'm your host for today, and I'm sitting here with my co hosts, Mike and Cara. And today we have a very special guest because she has been on the podcast earlier. We welcome Celia again. Celia is a human design expert, but also a neuroscience coach, and she's part of the This Is Yaya team. So, welcome back, Celia.
Thank you. It's really, as I already said, it's an honor that the whole team is there today. So thank you so much.
Yes, I'm very
And
excited. We
yeah.
all wanted to be here because it's going to be a super interesting topic. Human design was already a super interesting episode, but
Mhm.
now we'd like to talk to you about your other domain of expertise, which is neuroscience, a very broad topic, as you have mentioned before. And so we thought it would be good to to just record a whole episode about neuroscience.
Yes.
And maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, something I left out, or just explain a little bit what you do as a neuroscience coach.
Yes. So why also I combine on one side spirituality with human design and on the other side modern science with neuroscience. It's because I think both really work very well together. And I was always a nerd for understanding how our body functions, how our brain functions, the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, what effect does it has on us. And that's why I very naturally did a training on neuroscience and how to use it on in coaching for my clients. So it's really using brain-based techniques, and very simply put, because neuroscience can be very complex. I always tend to say to my clients, it's here to understand how we behave, what effects our emotions have on us, why do we have fears, why do we have limiting beliefs, and how can we rewire our brain into a positive mindset, into a winning mindset,
Mhm.
into a mindset where we are not scared anymore, we are not in a threat modus, we are not under chronic stress, which will be one of the topics of today. And if we have these little hacks in our daily basis, it's amazing how much we can do. And I always say, like, the brain is a muscle, like the rest of our body. And we tend to forget it. We tend to focus on the rest of our body. But for example, the brain uses 20% of our energy daily. So it's
Mm.
enormous. Like, it's really like it's a bit the lungs of our body, or the second lungs of our body. And that's why I really love better understanding how our brain functions, and especially the brain of my clients, to better help them get results.
Mm. Okay, super interesting. Because the first thing that popped into my head was like, okay, so the brain, like we use 20% of it, of our energy goes to the brain. So what role does it play then in, for example, when you are experiencing high levels of stress or anxiety?
Yes, very good question. So at a small amount, stress is actually very good for the brain, because the brain will then use the hormone of adrenaline,
Mm.
and this will really give you a kick. For example, when we have something exciting going on in our life, like you right before you go on stage and you have, for example, practiced a whole year with your dance team, and finally you're there at the group, you are going to perform. This is adrenaline. It's basically positive stress. And but if we go into high levels of stress over a longer period of time, our brain basically never really shuts down. What is very important with our brain, like I said, it's a muscle. When we train, for example, at a fitness studio, I think you will all relate here. You are maybe more experts than I am, but you will have phases where you will like push, you will pump, and then you will have the recovery. You will wait before going again into the exercise. It's the same for the brain with stress. So at small level, it's okay, especially if you have the time to recover afterwards. But a lot of people are constantly into this hyper productive mode, which is also linked to how our society works right now.
Mm.
And so we tend to push against the limits of our brain constantly. And so our brain is constantly on modus. It can't shut off anymore and it can't relax anymore. And this is where the cortisol levels in our body get so high. And this is when we have the negative effects of stress kicking in. And this is why it's so important to have recovery phases, to have small moments where you come back to yourself and you shut down a bit the brain and you do something that will be very soothing for your brain to help you also manage better the moments when you will experience stress, because we will all experience stress in our life at different moments, at different levels. It's okay, it's part of life. It's just that stress doesn't have to control us, and that especially we need these times, these pauses between the stress moments to be able to have this resilience over time.
Yeah. So it's like with everything, it's all about balance. So the same
Yes.
goes for your
Yes.
brain. Like you can have on periods, but you also need to have off periods in which you can switch it off, and just like relax a little bit. But how does that look for the brain, though? I think a lot of people will understand, like in training, for example, how to relax your body, but how does it look to de-stress your brain or your nervous system?
Mhm. Yes. So this is where our our phones are the big enemy, because
Yeah.
basically what a lot of us do is that we tend to think that relaxing our brain is basically just stop working and being on Netflix, look like watching a TV show, and that is disconnecting. Or that you're just being on the phone with a friend or but you're still in contact with a screen. And that's what was the very interesting moment when I did the training on neuroscience with a group of people. We were together, and basically you have what is called a healthy brain platter. So you have all the different needs of your brain. So there is, for example, learning something new, super important for your brain. We'll get to it a bit later with neuroplasticity. Then there was hugging someone, being in connection with someone. This is also something your brain needs to feel safe. So there were different sections, and we all needed to tick boxes when it was part of our life, when we did that. And if we didn't use this part of our brain in our daily life or weekly, we needed to leave it open. And all of us in the group, the only thing we didn't do is do nothing. And this is actually what the brain needs. So it's not even, it's really like being unproductive and trying to avoid all kinds of like distractions. Screens are, of course, one of the big distractions, because even if you have the impression you don't use your brain is still on this alert modus.
Yeah.
And so this is when mindfulness kicks in. And that is basically what I'm using with a lot of leaders I'm working with. It's called mindful leadership. It's really how can you cope with high levels of stress and with a lot of changes that occur in our daily professional lives. And so it can be micro practices. It can really start with just focusing on your breath, coming back a bit to the body, which will help a bit like get out of this hyper stimulated mind with all the thoughts, all what will happen next, or I forgot to do this, I forgot to call this person, or I still need to jungle between all these different topics. So micro practices of just like focusing on our breath, that's already enormous, because it just helps your brain say I'm safe. Only like the fact to like inhale and exhale in a very mindful way, like you really concentrate on the inhale and on the exhale, that already has a huge impact on your body. Then just observing your surroundings without any judgment. That's basically what mindfulness is. It's coming back to the present moment, not being in the past with your thoughts, and not being in the future in your thoughts, just being in the simplicity of the present moment. This is very, very powerful. And it's actually way more complex than what we think.
Yes, yes, but let me rephrase that again, because
Yes.
it's a very important one that you said. Like,
Mm.
so if I got it correctly,
Mm.
your brain literally needs to be unproductive
Yes.
from time to time. We need unproductiveness to be unproductive from time to time to have a healthy brain and to have a healthy balance, which means not just Netflix, because then you still have screen time and a lot of input for your brain, but really to focus on nothing or to focus on your breath, just your surroundings, just literally being. So if people tell you like, no, I can't sit still, I don't have any time to do nothing, then you can reply with, yeah, but that's not healthy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, very
That's one
interesting.
way. You explained it very well, very well. And what is fascinating is that it's very simply put. It seems so easy to just say, okay, we focus 3 times on our breath, or we just observe our surroundings. We listen to the little bird we hear. We see a beautiful tree and we just pause. It's just a couple of seconds in our day, but so many people are constantly running and escaping this present moment because we are worrying about the past or anticipating the future. And it's normal.
Yes.
It's totally normal also. We all have it. But it's just having the awareness to come back to the present moment is already 90% of the work. So just noticing that you're a bit in a spiral, that it's going very fast right now, and just saying, okay, I have the awareness that I'm just coming back to the present moment. That's already okay. And with time, this exercise will be easier and easier because your brain will get used to it. And this is when you build the muscle of the brain into what it actually needs. But
Yeah.
yes, basically doing nothing. And we literally nobody in does nothing. We very, very rarely do nothing. It's very
Yes.
difficult. Like
Yeah.
even if I know it, I have a lot of guilt when I'm telling myself, okay, now I know my body is screaming for it, my brain is screaming for it, because I don't have any creativity anymore. I don't have any memory anymore. I tend to forget things. I don't listen to people anymore because the brain has too much going on. These are signs of like chronic stress, or that the brain is just doing too much. And even if I have the symptoms and I know what to do, like intentionally doing nothing is something that nobody really learned, or at least we did it as a child. This is why it's sometimes very, very good to spend a time with children, because they are constantly in the present moment. They will observe a stone for 10 minutes and think it's the most beautiful thing in the world, you know? And you are like, no, we need to go now. And the child is so happy with this little stone. And just thinking and coming back to that. So this is why next time you spend time with a child, just come back to seeing the world through their eyes, because it really helps you connect to the present moment and being mindful.
Yeah, I also think that's something that we lose because of you see many parents walking with their children in nature, and the child is like stopping at a tree and like, whoa, this is the most beautiful tree, and the parent pulling at their arm and so, no, we have to go to our aunts or whatever, and that's how you learn to start thinking about, oh, we need to go there, we're too late
Exactly.
already, and that's how you lose it. So
Yeah.
it's a really good thing. And also a reminder for people not to rush their children, that it's okay to be late so that they can be
Oh,
in the
yes.
present. It's also an exercise that one of my coaches once gave me. So he made me very uncomfortable by making me stare at a cup for like 15 minutes and then trying to just observe the cup. And then I had to count in my head every time that I was starting to think about the past or the future. And then I had to say how many times I thought of something else than just a cup. And in the beginning, it's like 80 times, 100 times that you wander to something else. And then after a while, you get better at it. But it's really hard to learn, actually. So,
And thank you for adding this, because this is typically an exercise of mindfulness. So great that you had already this experience, and
yes.
That you're the perfect example of how at the beginning we have like 100 thoughts, and you're really like, but what's the point? Like,
Yeah, can we do
on.
something productive?
Exactly. And that actually it helps so much, and it then helps you be more productive. That's also what is amazing. This time of unproductiveness and mindfulness will actually help you perform better when you need to perform better.
That's
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
a very good one, I think, because you already said it yourself, Celia, and I think a lot of us recognize it, the guilt you feel if you don't do anything. Like, I think a lot of people already have it when they are watching Netflix, for example, but then you are still, of course, doing something. But if you literally don't do anything and you're just sitting still, a lot of people feel extreme guilt, and that's why a lot of people tell me like, no, I'm not someone who can sit still at home. Like I just need to, even if I'm off and I don't have anything to do, then I will just go out and go shopping or be on my phone or whatever. But now you said something that's actually a very good one for those people, maybe. You said like if the unproductiveness, you need it to become more productive afterwards. How does that work?
It's because it gives you this rest phase to your whole system, basically, to your brain, of course, to your body, to your nervous system, to your emotions. It's just like, even if we go now a bit back to very quickly to spirituality, you are constantly exchanging energy with others, and so you take energy from others, and at the end of the day, just having some time for yourself in your own energy, just 10 minutes. It can even be just taking a shower, because you clean the energies of the day with water. That is why water in religion is so holy. It's a super important part. It's the same for in our daily life. We can just shower and have this moment for us in our own bubble, in our own energy, to recharge properly. And so it's basically having just these small, so during the day, if possible, these small micro practices of just focusing on your breath, focusing on your cup in front of you, focusing on what is happening outside of the window, stretching your body a bit, but not even in a very like intense way, just having that like this impression of like expanding your lungs and getting bigger, and just like having this very like just micro practice. And then of course also having longer periods, but start small, start with baby steps. It's as your podcast, 1% per 1%, start with micro practices. And then when you feel more comfortable, also have phases where you just lay down for 10 minutes without anything, without even a guided meditation, if possible. Just you with yourself, and you lay down, and you are in a state of being, as you said very well, Saya. You're just yourself, nothing else. And this will already have an enormous impact on your future performance and your future productivity. And you will see already effects, even just with these micro practices, and even just with the 10 minutes laying on your couch, or being barefoot in your garden, just to ground yourself in the grass. You just walk like for 30 seconds. It's already having an impact. So I always tell my clients, like, start very small. Don't stress even more your body, or just lay there if you're uncomfortable. and saying, I need to be unproductive, I need to be unproductive. And then actually like you're getting again in your mind, like, and just spiraling, and you're like, it's horrible. Why am I doing this? You see this in the movie Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, when she needs to calm down in this meditation room. And it's so well described how there's the little flea coming, like she hears the sound of like the I don't have the name.
fan.
It's the fan. Thank you. And she just gets crazy over it, and she's not ready for it. So that's okay as well, because this is also when the nervous system regulations comes in. It will be very uncomfortable at first to be unproductive. If you have had this past of high chronic stress, of burnout, of pressure from your family to always perform, of a big trauma you had, and it comes up in those moments. So that is why I always tend to do it step by step and to be very, very careful, because at first it can be actually quite traumatizing to be unproductive, and that's when you lose the beauty of the moment, and the positive effect of it.
What do you mean by it can be quite traumatizing to be unproductive?
So because when as I was saying, when you don't have this regulated nervous system, and we force you into like taking too many steps forward without like respecting first like the regulation of the nervous system, it can be quite traumatizing for the body to lay down and just do nothing, because this is when everything comes up. And so for a lot of people, it can be very, very uncomfortable. So this is why I always tend to start with these micro steps and micro practices before jumping into something a practice that will take a bit more time, or that could be very uncomfortable for my clients.
So does that mean that some people should not just, for example, the exercise that Cara had to do from her coach, like stare 15 minutes to a cup, could that already be too much for some people?
At first it could. First it could, yeah. This is
So
why
then they have to just shorten it,
exactly, yeah.
So even just 5 minutes or 2 minutes or
exactly, just first to a bit, and this is where we come into the neuroplasticity of the brain. Our brain is constantly creating and destructing neurons. If we use a new, for example, if you do something new, we will create new neurons in our brain. If for a longer period of time we don't do something, it will basically kill neurons in our brain. And
use
it's
it or
okay.
lose it.
It's exactly. And it's okay. It's part of how the body functions. And the positive side is we can constantly reset our brain. We can constantly rewire it our whole life. And this is why it's so beautiful, because if it's used properly, like our brain is a superpower machine. And neuroplasticity is basically created if we do something new, if we get out of our comfort zone. So through this micro practice, you are still stretching a bit the mind of the client, but without directly doing the 10 minutes. That could be a bit too much, too overwhelming, and where you will go again into this freeze mode of the brain, and you won't be able to have the benefits of the exercise. But a bit of stretch is always very, very good. And I think it's something you have as well with your coaches. They will always try to stretch a bit to tell you, okay, do a bit more today. And the first thing you tend to think is, I won't be able to do it. And this is why the coach is so powerful, because he will say, okay, I know you can do it. And actually you can. And this is how you build confidence, how you build resilience, and how you build more performance over time, because you basically stretch your body, your mind, your emotions, and this is where you get the results.
Yeah, it's actually so similar to physical training, eh?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
with physical training as well, if you stretch it too much, you will get injured and you
exactly.
won't be able to sustain
Yeah.
it, and you
Exactly.
actually take a few steps back instead of
Yeah,
forward.
yeah.
So the same goes for your brain and your nervous
Yes,
system. You need to stretch it, but little by little to build it up
yes,
and not all at once.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm. Okay, super. So you like that was like to de-stress to learn to de-stress or to cope step by step with chronic stress and to train your brain, but like if we watch the brain regarding to behavioral change, what role do neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, what do they play role? What role do they play in behavioral change, in motivation, discipline, maybe? Because so many of us try to change our behaviors, our old patterns, but we keep on falling back.
Yeah.
What role does the brain play into that?
Yes. So maybe start with, if it's okay, with the bad habits, and then I explain how we can change that.
Perfect.
To come back to dopamine and serotonin and what role it plays um, into changing our behaviors into a more positive one.
Mhm.
So we are all naturally wired negatively from one side. So we are constantly seeing the world as a threat and danger.
Oh,
This is
great. So
how
it's
we are
not
living.
just me. That's great.
No, no, no. That's how the whole, like, that's how we are wired. And I think it's basically, this is my way of thinking, that it comes back to animals. Um, they are constantly searching for, am I safe? And like, it's very black and white, is am I currently safe, and where is the next danger, and how will I respond to it? And
Mm.
our brains are still very similar to that. So as soon as we find a bit of comfort in our daily routines, in habits that oftentimes are not so good habits, we tend to stay there because it's very comforting. It's something we know. And even if rationally we know those habits are not good for us, we tend to do it because on the short term, we will have this little reward kicking in. So what is very important, and it's actually something I learned in the book The Diary of a CEO,
Mm.
where he explains the example of his father that always started smoking when he was entering his car. It's the only moment of the day where he would smoke, and it lasted for years. And many times he said, I want to stop smoking, I want to stop smoking, but as soon as the stimuli, the trigger, which was the car, arrived, he wanted to smoke, until the day Stephen Bartlett, I think that's the author, so his son said, okay, I have a new technique. So basically, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, you need the same trigger point with it, which is the reward system, the reward part in your brain, which is linked to addiction and bad habits, and just replace this reward with something more attractive, more exciting. And so they thought with his father, instead of just wanting to stop and trying to stop, which is super difficult when you have been doing something for years, it's so easy to fall back into it. Um, Especially that you have this illusion of reward that will somehow soothe a bit your brain because it's something you know. You need to find something even more attractive than the bad habit you have currently. So you need to replace it with something that you really, really want, that you actually want more than the bad habits. In the case of the father of Stephen Bartlett, it was a lollipop. So he just like took a lollipop as soon as he entered the car instead of smoking. And it just, well, in the end, I was like, okay, it's not the best to take a lollipop, but this is okay. But at least he stopped smoking. And it was just the example of it that I found very powerful, because it's true that often we are like, but just stop this bad habit. But it's difficult, even the most disciplined person will at some point backlash. If there's a moment of stress, if there's a moment of weakness, like you tend to go back into these bad habits to feel comfort. So it's just, if you have a bad habit, the first thing also I ask my clients is, do you really want to get rid of this bad habit? Because as long as the person is not really ready to let it go, I won't push it, because it won't last. You need to want to change it. Otherwise, don't do it.
How do we
Don't
know?
do it.
How do we know for certain, or how do you know as a coach for certain if someone really, really wants it? Because I think a lot of people say this, like, I want to stop smoking, I want to stop this, I want to stop that,
Yeah.
but then they're not actually ready. How do you tell the difference?
It's a very good question, because to be very honest, I can't answer like rationally. For me, it's something I feel. It's in the way, it's the body language. It's how the person will say it. Like, will the person say it in a very assertive, confident way? Or will it be a bit, I should, or I try to, or it would be good if? Those kind of expressions are already like, I don't think this person really wants it. And then it's really something I feel more energetically, like from the body language used, like the tone of voice. And if I have, and I will always try to dig a bit deeper, understand the why behind. And this is usually when you tend to see if the person really wants it, or wants it for the wrong reasons, to please someone else, because the boyfriend doesn't want you to smoke, or because you think it will be better for you, but like, on paper it would be better, but inside you're not just ready for it. And it's okay. We are all humans, and we are like, take the time you need. And here I think is the job of the coach, again, to a bit stretch, to challenge, but not to decide for the person. In the end of the day, you have to decide for yourself.
At the same time, sorry, Celia.
All good, all good.
Yeah, at the same time, something popped up in my head, and it was like an example of some people. It might not be a lot of them, I don't know, but like some people initially stop a habit such as smoking for their partner, but then I thought about what you were saying, like it gets replaced by something they want even more, and in this case, it's the approval of the partner. But then you often see if the relationship ends or something goes wrong with the partner, or they have like a big fight or whatever, then they start smoking again.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a process that takes time to get rid. I think it's really long also for the brain to get into a new habit, because a habit is something automatic. You don't think about it like in a very mindful way. So coming to this stage, it's a long process, and this is where discipline kicks in. And this is why discipline is so important, because on the short term, you will have the rewards, which is the dopamine kicking in. So coming back to the dopamine you were asking at the beginning, dopamine has a huge, huge role on creating new habits and on our motivation, because it's great. It's really this impression of like, hey, we did something great. We managed that. It's this really powerful feeling we have inside of us. This is dopamine. It's this high five, like, yeah, we did it. On the other side, you ask about serotonin. Serotonin is more the feel-good hormone. It's more the hormone that makes you feel belong to, and that helps you connect deeply with others. So I think serotonin for me is not really the one we should focus on here in behavioral change and in motivation. If you really want to focus on that, it's more this really quick wins that are important that you should focus on to help you have this motivation. But even here, I tend to prefer to focus on discipline because motivation fluctuates. You can have a morning where you wake up and you will be super motivated and you will feel like a superhuman and you will do so many things and it will be amazing. And the next day, something happened. You had a fight with your boyfriend. If we come back to the example, you're not feeling so well, or you just woke up moody, not very motivated, and then you won't continue doing this thing. And so on the long term, motivation is not really a criteria we should focus on. This is why discipline is so important, is basically rejecting short-term pleasures for long-term reward. And this is why it's so important, because here again, the more you have the discipline to do things every day, even if on one day it's easier because you're motivated and on the other day it's less easier because you're less motivated, you just continue doing it. And this is when the habit kicks in, the automation kicks in. And this is when you will constantly have a little kick of dopamine, which is the reward system kicking in. And this will help you move on the long term. So here, to maybe answer your question in a very practical way, how can we use it for motivation and changing our behavior? I would first focus on, does this person really want to change on this specific topic? Wait for this moment, then replace the bad habits with a healthier one that is as attractive or even more attractive than the current one, the current habit. And then discipline kicks in. Do it every day. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. It's difficult, but you need to stay. And this is where also a coach is great, or someone else, an accountability buddy that helps you to really move forward consistently and to do these things over the long term to be able to create this new habit. And on a daily basis, try to a maximum to have this micro wins and to really celebrate yourself. Even the smallest win, just do it, because it will help you create this dopamine, which is this reward, like the feeling of reward, the feeling of winning, the feeling of like being possible to do anything. So this is a bit the process I would use based on the question you had around motivation and behavioral change based on bad habits.
I'm so sorry. I'm dog sitting and I need to let the dog out. Just a
Good.
second.
Good.
That happens. Okay, but we can continue, right? So thank you for that explanation. That's really nice. I'm always counting on Saya to lead the questions. So that's
good.
Good. Yeah, thank you for making that distinction. I think it's really powerful. And also, the replacing a bad habit when someone's actually ready to let it go, the bad habit, with something more attractive. It's so it's so good. And that also explains why people fall back into old habits that don't serve them anymore, because the motivation, not the motivation, but the intrinsic reason is not strong enough. Exactly. So that's really, so if it's more attractive, maybe not a lollipop, but something else that's more attractive. But
exactly, because I was wondering, like, what is a good example to replace your bad habit with? Let's say smoking, for example, because a lot of people do what the Stephen Bartlett's father did. They start snacking and they start eating a lot of candy and sugar to replace it. It's not that great. Like, okay, smoking is also very unhealthy, but snacking is also very, it's not
that's
what we
why
want.
That's why
So
people gain weight when they stop
yeah,
smoking,
yeah.
because you do it naturally. So you replace it, even if you just stop out of discipline, people naturally do that. So they reward themselves with like crisps or a lollipop or something. So even if it's not intentional, people do that, I think. So indeed, that's a really good question. That's
Yes. I'm not an expert in smoking because I've never smoked, but here again, a bit coming back to what you said, Kara, and what I mentioned also a bit earlier, it's understanding the why behind this bad habit. Because oftentimes we have this bad habit out of automation, out of comfort, but we don't really need it. And we do it for a specific reason. We stress, so we smoke. We have too many emotions going on and we don't know how to cope with them. We smoke. We lack of social connections, so we smoke. There are triggers behind that are way deeper than just the trigger to smoke, the addiction to smoke. So this is where it's interesting to understand and to dismantle a bit the reason behind the smoking. And then based on that, you try to find a healthier habit, but that is linked to this trigger. And this is where indeed stopping to smoke by snacking on bad things, on unhealthy snacks, it's just replacing a bad habit with another one. So this is where basically you need on one side to find something that will remain attractive for the person, that will like spark joy, like have this a bit like dopamine kick, and therefore the motivation and the discipline to follow through. But at the same time, it needs to go trigger this deeper wound and to be able to soothe this wound. So for me, it's these two reasons that will help someone do it the healthier way, let's say.
Yeah, because like, how do you find what is more attractive to you in that moment, since that a lot of behaviors, let's for example say snacking, if you notice that you snack a lot, you tend to snack a lot and you want to quit that, yeah, for some people it will be in moments of stress to cope with stress, but it will also be in moments where they socially engage with others, or in moments where they feel bored. It can have like different meanings. So how do you find a behavior that you can replace it with that is as attractive and as multifunctional as the snacking, for example, was?
So here it goes very, I think it's very unique to each person, to each story, to each like background, and so I will do my best to have like a general answer to it. But I would say that the moment you don't want this bad habit anymore, you're already willing and open to new possibilities. And this is where the creativity kicks in again, because you want to change it. You have this motivation, you have this willingness, this very strong willingness. So this is where basically the person will find it by itself. We can, of course, like find ideas, but in the end, the person has the answers. And that's what is beautiful also. Because and this is also where bad habits are so beautiful. Like, the willingness to change from a bad habit to a more positive one is so beautiful, because in this moment, the person knows actually why she wants to do it. And she will have the creativity to find new ways of changing that. So here I would guide through questions, but in the end, the person already has a lot of options usually. And what I tend to do is make the process as fun as possible. Like, for example, give a name to the bad habit. Like, a super weird name, you know, and give a super attractive name to the new habits, and trying to really work around that, and trying to see how can the whole process be more attractive, be more fun, not just the thing that the person is supposed to pursue and to change. So maybe, but here it's very, very unique to each person, so it's a bit challenging for me to give you a very specific answer.
Yeah, but I think you already gave a very good answer, like the fact that the intrinsic motivation, and if the why is like deep enough and strong enough, that people will inevitably find ways to replace it, and maybe more importantly, they will have the intrinsic motivation to try and find something that will replace it, and maybe you will have to do it through trial and error and try some new things that can replace it, but they will eventually find it because they really want it to change, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. You already spoke a little bit about discipline and the importance of it compared to motivation, since motivation, yeah, we all know the feeling of being super motivated, especially in the beginning, like you have like this moment, like, yes, let's fucking go. But then in the hard moments, that's not the thing that will keep you going, since motivation fluctuates. But like, how does one, because I sometimes have friends who say like, yes, but I'm not as disciplined as you. And then I think like I'm not that special. Like I might have a strong character and temperament or whatever, and I might, like my mom, for example, is also someone very disciplined, so I might have had it from her a little bit, but still I'm not superhuman or whatever. So and I also lack in stuff. So what's the thing about discipline, and how does the brain come into play into that? How can we train it, let's say?
So discipline is actually very basic. Like it's just this consistency to do things over time. So it doesn't really get easier, but it becomes part of you. And you are less questioning it. And it's less a big mountain to overcome. It's just one of the many tasks you have during the day. So for me, discipline is, again, coming back to the purpose behind. Is it really aligned with who you are? Is it aligned with where you want to go? Because if you have this end vision, this end goal in mind, you will, of course, have this daily discipline to move closer to this end goal. This is for me the first thing that I like to work on and to dismantle. Then discipline is basically very linked to habits. So we come back to already what we discussed. And then it also comes back to make it fun and make it a reward. Because discipline is really this, it's very badly, like oftentimes very negatively, has a negative connotation. When we say, oh, discipline, it's people that are a bit boring, that are always doing the same. Like, I'm someone very spontaneous. I like to go with the flow. Like, yes, it's very good. But you need a minimum of disciplines to get this performance and to get the results you want to get. And we can all be disciplined, and we can all get to the same results if we get our mind to it. So here it's really coming back to the mindset. Is there an initial motivation? If yes, discipline will kick in way easier. And then it's basically repetition, repetition, repetition for the brain. Brain thrives on repetition. Because this is how we create neuroplasticity. This is how we create the new neurons and pathways in our brain. And this is how we will get to results. And when we get to the results, we will have the impression of, okay, I managed to do it. 1 year ago, I would have never thought I was able to do it, and I managed to do it. And this is where you have like a virtuous cycle, because you reach your end goal, And then you're like, wow, I made it. I'm capable of doing it. And then you are like, okay, let's do the next, what is the next challenge and how to get there. And this is where you will your whole life build this discipline. So yes, Saya, of course, if you grew up with a mom who has this discipline, it helps. But it's also just it's also you just like have the right reasons, I suppose, to want to be better, to want to improve. This is when we come back to this growth mindset we have. And you are constantly injecting more growth on a daily basis. You see your wins, you see your results, and it just keeps you going. And this is where people just need to start. It's the just do it of Nike, or it's just like moving through the fear, moving through the comfort zone. It's just start. Just start with one thing and then start it again. And brick by brick, you will get the wins, the small wins, the bigger wins, the results, the performance, the productivity, the healthy habits. And this will help you also get into this automation of discipline, because you know what it will get you. So if people tend to say like, I don't know how you do it, like I'm not like that, it's a bit self-sabotaging. It's people that are basically like they for now choose the comfort and the short-term pleasures over like long-term reward. And it's people that need this little push, that need this little rewiring of the brain, and that need to understand that it comes in small wins. I think this is very much like coming back to the 1%, or to what we said at the beginning. Just start step by step, and this is how the results will kick in. And discipline, it's a very tricky one, and here it really helps also to have the right support system. This is why it's great, like the discipline and the motivation will always come from you first, but if you have the right support system, it will really help you also build the momentum. So this is why communities are so strong. This is why accountabilities are so strong. This is why coaches are so strong, or mentors, because they just help you in the moments of a bit more doubts or weakness or fears kicking in, which is totally normal. It's part of the game, to help you keep going on the long term and to still see the end result.
Yeah, 100%. It's the accountability and the right support system is so important. When I have clients, I have a lot of people with strong cravings, cravings to all sorts of things. It could be any kind of food, and it's really important. I make them do a test most of the time so that they can see which neurotransmitter is not helping them. So it's most of the time like serotonin makes for specific cravings for sweets after dinner and stuff like that. So the understanding of it, and then involving the rest of the family with the craving, so that they understand like I'm missing some serotonin and this is what I need instead. So you can have someone help you replacing it. But it's not always, if you have to do it all by yourself, it's not always easy. So that's
exactly.
Do pets count as well? Like pets, they also improve your serotonin, no?
Yeah, if it's serotonin, then cuddling with a pet is actually a very effective thing. If you crave chocolate after dinner, it's better to go cuddle your dog after dinner, or your cat. That actually really helps.
It's a very good one. It's a very good example. It soothes a lot the nervous system, and it helps a lot with people with depression. And it's true, it's linked to serotonin. This need of like belonging, a connection, physical touch. It helps a lot to.
So if there's like one pro tip someone needs to take away from this podcast, go cuddle your pet if you want to snack.
Exactly.
If you want to eat chocolate after dinner, please go cuddle someone's pet.
Don't
like
smoke a cigarette. Don't snack. Just go cuddle your dog.
Yeah, it's actually really true. Or just a cuddle, basically. So people are like, oh, I can't stop snacking. How long has it been since you got a hug that was longer than 3 seconds? Maybe that's something. So yeah, that's actually, and that's more rewarding to do. Getting a hug from a pet or a person is much more rewarding than eating a whole bar of chocolates.
Yeah.
So it's also, but it's also the awareness, and that people around you need to know that that's what's happening. Because a lot of people, they talk to me and they're like, I don't have the discipline to stop eating chocolates, but they don't understand why they are eating chocolates. So that helps, I notice. But then we have to replace it with something else. Otherwise, you will always fall back. If you just stop eating chocolate and you do understand, like it's because of too little serotonin, and you do nothing to solve it, and it will come back and come back and come back all the time.
Yeah, and also like what you were saying, the power of environment and
Mm.
community. I was just thinking about it, like at my job, like my main job, we have a lot of angry customers sometimes because we're at the front desk, so of course they come to you, and I notice it like we have like a vending machine like right across our front desk, like literally right. So we're looking at it the whole
Yes.
day,
Yes.
so which is already awful, right? And there's nothing nothing healthy in the vending machine, of course. But I noticed that like once we have had like an angry customer or like the vibes are just really not good, then a lot of us go to the vending machine and it's just one person who starts and then the other ones start going as well. It's very difficult not to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So interesting. That's that's a very powerful one. And I mean, food is such a big component and trigger for
Yes.
so many of us.
Mhm.
For me, for example, it's when I'm tired. I need the fuel.
Yes.
I had a bad night. I pushed through the until the afternoon, like working. As you know, Saya, I'm a projector, which I'm not so I'm not supposed to like push through too much. And instead of like just going for a nap or just stopping, I will tend to, these are the moments where I will tend to like want like something sugary to just give me this kick, this short-term kick of energy. So it's very interesting. We all have it with different, it can be emotions, it can be just not having enough energy, it can be indeed like mental health issues.
Yes.
It's very
Yeah,
interesting how
and
powerful
isn't it
food is.
also like physiologically a thing that if we are tired, if we have had less sleep, then our body literally craves
Yeah.
the sugar to
Yes.
have the boost in
Yes.
energy because
Yes.
you're lacking energy literally.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
also you have like less willpower to
Yes.
say no to unhealthy
Yes.
things. Like if I pass the McDonald's when I'm very tired, it's very hard to tell myself no, let's not do it. I had to do it yesterday. It was difficult, but I did it. So
Yeah.
dopamine moment.
Very
It's
good.
actually, I think it's a bit, our brain is not wired to be surrounded by all these sugary foods. It's not
Yeah.
normal that we have access to all this energy. So if you're tired and your brain sees something that has a lot of energy, your brain's like, oh, that's a good solution.
Yeah.
I feel threatened because I have a lot of stress at work, so it might not feel safe to just go to sleep, and then maybe we can get a snack and then we can get to safety faster. So
Yeah.
your brain is like surrounded by this so much calorie energy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very hard to say no. Our brain is wired to find the easiest solution. Huh?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
Definitely.
Celia, you already said it in the beginning of this episode. The breath is a very powerful and
Mm.
simple and I think
Mm.
underrated tool to relax your body, your nervous system, and your brain. Um, what's like one powerful technique that you would suggest to help you rewire your brain? What is a breathing exercise that you would give? It can be very small, eh? It can be big, it can be small, something people can maybe do at home, or what would you recommend regarding to the breath?
So there are plenty of techniques based on your needs. One that I love is used when you are in a moment of anxiety or a bit overstimulation. It's inhaling for 4 seconds, stopping the breath for 7 seconds, and exhaling for 8. So
Okay, so it's
4,
not like the
7.
box breathing. It's not like 4, 4, 4, 4.
It's yeah, and I think Kara, you know it from what I saw, no? Or
Yes, yeah,
yeah,
I know it.
it's so this one is very, very powerful. For example, if you experience like high levels of stress or anxiety, then it can really just, if I like, for example, also to link it with a bit more active mindfulness. So for example, you can do the first breath and focus on your mind, the second breath focusing on your heart, and the last breath focusing on your intestine, on your gut. Because these are often the parts of your body that can be a bit overstimulated when you feel it's a bit too much, or you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, you feel frustrated, you feel angry. So just visualizing, soothing your mind with the first breath, soothing your heart with the second one, or giving love to your heart, and then giving warmth to your intestine, to your gut feeling. These are maybe the two that popped out like that. And then more generally, one very powerful technique outside of breathing to help you rewire your brain from threat, danger, negative one to a more positive one is limiting beliefs, working on your limiting beliefs. You have it a lot in all kind of coaching dynamics, but it really works. It really, really works. So it's catching the negative thoughts you have about yourself, about your environment, criticizing others, judging, being mean with yourself, and just catching this negative thought when it happens. So here it's coming back to this awareness, to this consciousness of, oh, I'm currently being in a negative spiral, and replacing this thought with a positive one. At first, you're on autopilot. These negative thoughts, you have them all the time, you don't even notice them. Second part is you notice them. And third part is you replace these negative thoughts with positive ones. So here are a lot of exercises you can first do based on paper, but generally in your daily life, just start by noticing them and just doing the game of, I caught myself saying, oh, no, I ate this chocolate because I was frustrated by this client that was horrible. Let's run to the vending machine. And then you feel bad about yourself because you did it. If you have those kind of moments where also your body, like you don't feel very well, try just to say, like, it's okay. I know why I did it, and it was a pleasure for my body. Tomorrow or tonight I will have a more healthy habit, and it's okay, and you move past it. This is very, very powerful on the long term to really get out of this negative threat mindset and go into a more positive, resilient one.
How do you replace it? Because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, now I notice like the negative limiting beliefs, but how do I replace them with the more positive ones? I can't just take them out and put them in. So how do you?
You actually can.
Okay,
You actually
interesting.
can. This is why coming back to the fact that our brain is constantly producing new neurons and destructing old ones. So you can constantly reset and change your brain for a positive one or for a negative one. It's fine. You can stay in a negative one, or you can, through the whole course of your life, decide to change that. And that is why it's like neuroscience or understanding your brain is so, so powerful and empowering, because you can change it. Of course, it won't be overnight. But, and this is why I talked about the different steps, like autopilot, having the awareness of it, and then replacing them. And here you can find a lot of exercises. What I tend to do is, for example, I first do a list of all the limiting beliefs I have, all the negative thoughts I have, like constantly, like that come daily. And then I just write them down and I replace them with positives one that are linked to it. So for example, I'm not capable, very easy on now. I'm not capable. To I'm capable. And then I have posted all around my apartment with these positives one. For example, when you brush your teeth, you see I'm capable. When you get a glass of water, you have another one, and you just have them a bit all around your place to just constantly see them, consciously, unconsciously. And then really on a daily, this is when discipline comes in. When you have those negative thoughts spiraling in your mind, come back to the positives one. At first, it's super unnatural. And as you were saying, Saya, it's your question is very valid. But how can it really work? But this is where you trick your mind. You really trick your mind. At first, you don't really believe it. You're like, okay, why am I doing this? This is very strange. I don't know how it can work, but slowly the negative ones will have less space, less power, and the positives one will slowly kick in. And this is why, for example, also gratefulness is so important. Having small moments of gratefulness in your day where you're just grateful for already what you have, for the people around you, or you wish good to others. This is also something very powerful. I tend to use it instead of focusing on yourself and on what you want to change and how you want to be better. This is already a very beautiful one, but also wish good for people. And especially the ones that trigger you the most. Wish them good.
Yeah.
Wish them good. And very like, at first, it's not very natural. It's difficult. Like the difficult client you had, you're like, now I have all his bad energy. Like, why was he like that with me? It wasn't my fault at all. Like, I just got all this energy on me. Just bless them. Say, I bless this person and it's okay. I wish her good. And slowly, these are like little techniques that just help you go into this positive mindset. It doesn't mean a toxic positivity. No, we are all humans. These negative thoughts will be there our whole life, but they will just have less weight.
Yeah.
And the positive ones will be more important. This is what we're just trying to do. We are not trying to suppress it completely, because I don't think it's biologically even possible, because it's who we are as humans.
Exactly. We live like in a world of duality, and like the scale will always exist.
Exactly.
But what you are saying is we are trying to balance the scale
Yes.
a little bit towards the more positive part of your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It's also the exercise I did in our 1% improvement day, Saya, the one with how do you say it in English? I don't know, the critic, the critic in your head, like the self sabotaging thoughts, and giving it a name. And I also always, when I use this exercise with my clients, I always tell them that the negative thoughts had a purpose, so that we don't have to be mad at them. It protected us in a way. So it was sometimes the thing to be grateful for, because it protected us when we were young. So you will always have them, but if you notice, it's these thoughts, and then we give them a name. So mine is called Karel. So it's because he's very angry, male sergeant-like type. So if you notice these thoughts, you can say, oh, it's that part of me, but that's not really who I am. And if you can link the positive affirmations to who you really are, so what you really believe, then you can always dissociate from the bad ones. But it will come up if you feel tired, or if you have a difficult, stressful period, they will come up. But if you have the tools to recognize that it's not really serving you, and that you notice where it comes from, then you can be thankful for what it used to help you with, and then replace it with who you really are. That's how I like to do it. It's really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think like there are some differences in or maybe small differences in how people can distance themselves from the inner critic, because I can tell that some people are just very good in catching themselves at it and in
Yeah.
um, replacing it by more positive thoughts, or by just saying like, oh no, that's my inner critic. While
Yeah.
others, I'm a person like that. I can notice it, but I still am eager to call someone and to tell them like, hey, my inner critic or my imposter syndrome is talking very loudly to to me right now. Can you just please help me a little bit? And then they will
Mhm.
try and speak to me in positive ways. And it's not that I don't know it myself, but the weights of another person sometimes just it just helps me more. And then I have friends who can do it by themselves and who really
Mhm.
process a lot of things by themselves. But it's, yeah, no way is better than the other. I think it's just how, yeah, what you prefer, or what works best for you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think so. I also do this with some of my friends, that we know the names of each other's inner critics and that we call each other out on it. And it's like, it looks like your inner critic is talking and not you. So can I please have my friend back?
Yeah.
Because I'm talking to her ego now. So that's also in families. And if you explain it, it's a very easy thing to explain to children as well. So they can call you out. If you're a parent, that your children can, when they're old enough, call you out like, Mom, it's not really you, but it's actually Chantal or whoever. So, because it's easy to understand, so it's really nice if you have people around that you can explain it to and help you with.
Yes.
So,
Right.
mhm.
Very
Thank
nice.
you for that.
Super. All right, Celia, I'm looking at the clock and it's 16:16, so that's perfect.
Wow.
I was just wondering, like, with the final question, what small step would you recommend to people who want to start rewiring their brain?
Mhm. I'm just thinking because we already did a lot of things. We already explained a lot of different things during the podcast. So I'm just thinking of something new, but it's one thing. My partner read in a book that I thought was genius. It's The Big Leap Year from Gay Hendricks, I think, and he gives a lot of little tips to help you have your best year yet. and and there was one thing that was very much linked to neuroscience and that I thought was genius to just help you a bit like a brain fitness and to help you create this neuroplasticity. It's basically using your weak hand. So if you, for example, tend to write with the right hand, try to do something with your left hand. Just one thing. It can be like if you're playing table tennis outside, it's now beautiful, and you just try to do a couple um, of um, of exchanges with the one you're playing with your weaker hand, or
Mhm.
you're writing one empowering belief with your weaker hand. It will already help you completely like rewire a bit your brain into like a more like positive new one because you're doing something
Mhm.
new, and it really helps your brain like, okay, this person, you are capable of doing that. So this would be maybe one small fun thing that is a bit
Mhm.
out of the box and that we didn't discuss until now. That could be very fun for your audience to try in the next couple of weeks. So trying something,
Mhm.
or just pour water with the other hand and drink it. It can be really something that you tend to do automatically. Just change it and see how your body and your brain responds to it. And then you
Mhm.
can give yourself a high five, like Mel Robbins, the technique of the high five. There are a lot of very small things you can already do to just help you set yourself into a more positive one. And it doesn't need to be big changes. That's what I think is important to remember, is start with a small win, start with a small moment of gratefulness. Just start very slowly, very with something very small, a micro practice, as I like to call them, and see already the effect it has on your brain.
Mhm. Really nice.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Celia. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast again.
With pleasure as well. So enjoy the beautiful weather. I
Yes.
Yes.
see everywhere sun in your room, so just
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to have you again. Thank you for the great questions. And yeah, we'll be
And
looking forward to.
yeah, the final most important thing also, where can people find you?
Mhm. So I can send you all the links, but I have an updated website now where you can generate your free human design charts. You can directly buy a report. You have all my offers. So this is really, really great. There are a lot of resources there where you can already start exploring a bit what I offer and how you can start growing. And then Instagram and LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Super. We will put everything in the show notes so that people can click on it easily.
Perfect. Thank
All
you so
right.
much, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Celia.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.